Did you know that one mistake could cost millions of lives? In this story, the USA decided the fate of the war in just a few days. If you're interested in the truth about World War II, subscribe and hit the like button. There are many shocking facts ahead. November 8, 1942, Sidi Bouzid, Tunisia, North Africa. The desert morning broke clear and cold, sunlight slanting low across the jagged stones and cracked earth. Imagine yourself there, the silence before the storm, the kind that makes your skin prickle. Obergefreiter Wilhelm Schmidt knelt behind a sun-baked wall of crumbling limestone, fingers clenched tightly around the worn wooden stock of his carabiner 98K. It felt like an extension of his arm after 3 long years of war. The rhythm was second nature now. Load around, fire, pull the bolt, eject the casing, slide forward, load again. A mechanical dance honed from the blood-soaked fields of Poland, the rolling hills of France, the frozen trenches of Russia. That was the cadence of the Wehrmacht. Deliberate, disciplined, lethal. 5 rounds to a magazine, each fired by hand, each one counted and accounted for. Across the wide expanse of dust and heat, shimmer, shapes began to move. American soldiers, young, green, or so Schmidt had been told. Command had assured them these Yankees were untested, soft from luxury, their weapons subpar, their training a poor imitation of German precision. But what unfolded in the next minute would obliterate those illusions with the finality of gunfire. The Americans opened fire, but it wasn't the slow, rhythmic popping Schmidt expected. No, it was a storm, a thunderclap of gunfire that didn't let up. This wasn't bolt action. This wasn't familiar. It was a wall of bullets, each one following the last with frightening speed. While Schmidt carefully squeezed off 3 aimed shots, the American across from him had already emptied his 8-round clip and was reloading. There was no bolt to work, just trigger, aim, fire, again and again. This was the M1 Garand, and it would tear through more than just German flesh. It was about to shatter German military doctrine at its core, because the devastation wasn't just physical, it was psychological. German soldiers had been taught to believe, no, to know, that their weapons and tactics were the finest in the world. That belief would begin to crumble not from artillery or tanks, but from the hands of every American infantryman armed with this semi-automatic marvel. What the Wehrmacht faced in North Africa wasn't just an opponent. It was a new paradigm, one forged in American factories, tested in Philippine jungles, and now crashing headlong into German lines. The roots of German confidence ran deep, anchored in a proud martial tradition centuries old. Their rifle, the carabiner 98K, had entered service on June 21, 1935, a masterpiece of engineering refined from the legendary Mauser lineage. It was brutally effective, deadly accurate up to 550 yards with iron sights, unyielding in mud and snow, and simple enough for the rawest recruit to clean and maintain, firing the formidable 9,57 Mauser cartridge. It could punch through thick cover and light armor with ease. With the Kar 98K in their hands, German troops had stormed across Europe, a thunderous advance from Warsaw to the Seine. Their doctrine demanded precision. Every shot must count, every round placed with clinical intent. A trained marksman with the Kar 98K could deliver 15 carefully aimed shots per minute, a tempo considered more than adequate when facing similarly armed forces. Polish, British, French, all equipped with bolt-action rifles. The British Lee Enfield, with its 10-round magazine, had a slight edge in speed, But German officers dismissed this as a sacrifice in accuracy. Volume, in their view, could never replace precision. Then came the Americans. When Operation Torch landed Allied forces in North Africa in November 1942, German intelligence had already filed thick reports on the Americans. Those reports were, in retrospect, tragically arrogant. They spoke of manufacturing prowess paired with military naivety. The American soldier, it was claimed, put too much trust in his hardware, too little in tactical finesse. The M1 Garand, while noted, was not feared. Yes, it was semi-automatic. Yes, it held 8 rounds. But it was heavier, nearly 9. 5 pounds to the Kar 98K's 8. 2. German analysts dismissed it, a flashy piece of machinery, inferior in ruggedness and accuracy to the tried-and-true bolt action. They were wrong. American troops had already blooded the Garand in the steaming jungles of the Philippines. Since December 8, 1941, the day after Pearl Harbor, U.S. soldiers had used the M1 to hold ground and fight back Japanese advances. These rifles, shipped months earlier to the islands, armed not just regular troops, but the elite Philippine scouts. They fought fiercely, so fiercely that Japanese attackers reported facing what they believed was machine gun fire. General Douglas MacArthur, hardened by the reality of jungle warfare, sent word back in February 1942, lauding the M1's resilience in the mud and grit of frontline trenches. So by the time Schmidt's squad dug in near Sidi Bouzid, the Americans were no longer the novices German command imagined. Their rifles had already proven themselves in heat, in rain, in ambush, and now they would do so again in the unforgiving sands of Tunisia. The battle that day was not a contest of bravery. It was a collision between two visions of war. Schmidt and his comrades fired with calm, deliberate aim, cycling bolts, placing shots, trusting in doctrine. But what came back at them was relentless. Rifle fire, not machine guns, but rifles, came in floods. For every shot a German fired, the Americans sent back 2 or 3, each just as deadly. Trained Wehrmacht soldiers delivered 15 rounds a minute, but the Americans, 30, 40, more, and they hit. There was no time to suppress, no pause to recover. Every time a German head rose above cover, a new storm of rounds drove it back down. The math didn't lie, and neither did the bodies. This wasn't just a firefight. It was the death knell of an outdated belief. 2 minutes of fire, a revolution in combat. Picture yourself in the crucible of battle. 2 minutes, just 120 seconds, where life and death are decided by the speed and precision of your rifle. For a German soldier clutching his Karabiner 98K, that meant firing perhaps 30 rounds, each one placed carefully, manually. But on the other side of the line, the American with his M1 Garand would loose over 80 rounds, faster, steadier, and just as deadly. Why? Because while the German had to lift his head, work the bolt, reacquire his target, and fire again, the American simply squeezed the trigger. Over and over, the target never left his sights. This wasn't just a matter of convenience. It was a technological revolution. The M1 Garand's brilliance lay in its semi-automatic gas-operated system. With each shot, the weapon stole a whisper of gas from the barrel, channeling it through a port to drive a piston beneath. This piston set the rifle's action into motion, ejecting the spent casing and chambering the next round in one fluid, lightning-fast motion. All of it happened in the blink of an eye. The result? No need to disturb the shooter's sight alignment. Accuracy remained rock solid, even under sustained fire. At Springfield Armory, the birthplace of the M1, tests confirmed what soldiers would later prove in battle. This rifle could consistently hit targets within a 4-inch spread at 100 yards, an astonishing level of precision, and many rifles did better. No wonder that on January 26, 1945, General George S. Patton famously declared to Major General Levin H. Campbell, Jr., Chief of Ordnance, "In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised." This was no empty praise. Patton understood what few yet realized. The M1 Garand had redefined infantry combat. One man, one rifle, but the firepower of several. Not just speed, but reliability, range, and accuracy all rolled into one weapon. It was as if the battlefield had tilted in America's favor, and this rifle was the fulcrum. The arsenal of democracy in action. By mid-1943, entire U.S. Army divisions were being equipped with M1 Garands, a scale never before seen. Between 1937 and 1945, over 4 million M1 rifles rolled off the assembly lines. Springfield Armory alone produced 3,526-922, while Winchester repeating arms added 513th and 180 more. This industrial feat was staggering. By the time American boots hit the beaches of Normandy on D-Day in June 1944, virtually every rifleman carried an M1 Garand, a military force in the millions, all armed with semi-automatic rifles. Their adversaries, still chambering rounds by hand, but technical specs tell only half the story. The M1 fired the venerable .30-06 Springfield cartridge, a battle-hardened round in service since 1906. It hurled a 150-grain bullet at 2,800 feet per second, its energy devastating even at range. The rifle fed from an 8-round en-bloc clip, inserted directly into the receiver. When the final shot rang out, the clip was automatically ejected with a sharp ping, a sound so distinctive that soldiers would later recognize it as the song of American firepower. Though some feared this sound might betray their position, veterans in the chaos of battle reported it was barely audible a few feet away. Endurance in every environment. The M1 Garand's ruggedness became legendary. From the choking sands of North Africa to the mud-slick mountains of Italy, the frigid forests of Northern Europe, to the freezing hell of the Korean Peninsula, the rifle endured. Dust, grit, snow, and sleet could not stop it. Soldiers field-stripped it without tools, cleaned it in minutes, and reassembled it without frustration. German troops, hardened veterans themselves, noted the M1's reliability with a mixture of admiration and dismay. Where their own rifles might jam or falter under field conditions, the Garand kept firing. Firepower, reimagined German infantry doctrine, was built around the machine gun. The MG-34, later the ferocious MG-42. These weapons delivered blistering suppressive fire while riflemen maneuvered and picked targets deliberately. But machine guns required crews, ammunition carriers, and careful positioning. Artillery could silence them. A single rifleman, however, could not be so easily suppressed. And when every American rifleman carried a Garand, capable of near-automatic rates of fire, the balance shifted. An American squad with M1s brought firepower that rivaled, even exceeded, that of German machine gun teams, not in one place, but distributed. 8 or 9 soldiers, each an autonomous source of accurate rapid fire. The German strategy of suppression no longer worked. To silence one American, you had to silence them all. The Italian crucible, from September 1943 onward, as the Allies clawed their way up the rugged Italian peninsula, the German army learned just how lethal American infantry had become. From the beaches of Salerno to the bitter defenses before Rome, German soldiers consistently found themselves outgunned. A captured report from the 94th Infantry Division, dated March 1944, painted a sobering picture. German units, even in fortified positions, were being pinned down by rifle fire alone, not by mortars, not by heavy weapons, but by the relentless hail of rounds from American Garands. The report's recommendation was stark: more machine guns, more support weapons, anything to counter the sheer volume of fire a U.S. squad could produce. A doctrinal dilemma. The German command knew it faced a crisis. The solution? Develop a semi-automatic rifle of their own. Thus was born the Gewehr 41, a weapon meant to rival the Garand. But the path to reclaiming firepower parity would prove longer and more difficult than they imagined, and by then, the Americans had already rewritten the rules of infantry warfare. The German response: too little, too late now. Imagine the other side of this arms race. A desperate scramble to catch up as battlefield realities crushed long-held doctrines. Faced with the brutal effectiveness of the M1 Garand, the German military sought an answer. Two competing semi-automatic rifle prototypes emerged: the G41M from Mauser and the G41W from Walter. Both would ultimately prove to be technological dead ends. Why? Because from the outset, the design was shackled by flawed assumptions. German engineers, constrained by Ordnance Department requirements, were forbidden from drilling gas ports into the barrels, a measure intended to prevent wear, but one that forced them into using gas trap systems mounted near the muzzle. These systems were overly complex, prone to fouling, and added excessive weight. The rifles became burdensome to carry, difficult to maintain, and notoriously unreliable in the field. Production numbers tell the story. Only between 6,000 and 15,000 units of both designs were ever manufactured before the program was abandoned. Meanwhile, captured Soviet SVT-40 rifles, which did use gas ports, functioned with surprising reliability. The very feature the Germans had dismissed turned out to be a cornerstone of successful semi-automatic operation. The lessons learned led to the development of the Gewehr 43, introduced in October 1943. With a simplified gas system and a detachable 10-round box magazine, the G43 was a significant improvement. Lighter, more dependable, and field-strippable, it was a weapon German soldiers welcomed. Some 53 435 were even equipped with telescopic sights and used by designated marksmen. Total production reached around 402,013 rifles before the war ended, yet even the G43 was too little, too late. For every 50 Kar 98K rifles churned out, only a single G43 was produced. Most German infantrymen would finish the war still burdened with bolt-action weapons. Even those lucky enough to receive a G43 quickly discovered it wasn't the equal of the M1 Garand. Its more intricate mechanism, higher maintenance demands, and growing scarcity of spare parts in a crumbling German war machine meant it never reached its full potential on the battlefield. Germany had entered the Second World War without a viable semi-automatic infantry rifle, and by the time they developed one, they had already lost the race. M1 Garand, more than a rifle, a doctrine. The Garand wasn't just a weapon, it was a tactical enabler. Its presence redefined American infantry doctrine. Training shifted from cautious, slow-paced fire to rapid engagement, high-volume suppression, and maneuver warfare. U.S. squads were taught to shoot quickly, accurately, and relentlessly. Every man with a Garand could lay down substantial fire, giving even small units the firepower to dominate. American tactics reflected this shift: fire and movement. While one team laid down withering cover fire, the other advanced. And thanks to the Garand, that covering fire was dense, accurate, and sustained. The effect was catastrophic for German defenders, as seen clearly on June 6, 1944, at Omaha Beach. The German 352nd Infantry Division, a full-strength unit of over 12,000 men, manned fortified bunkers and concrete positions atop the bluffs. Their defenses should have been nearly impenetrable. But when American forces reached the base of those cliffs, they unleashed a torrent of Garand fire. Every rifleman was semi-automatic. Every shot pressed the enemy harder. German gunners couldn't maintain sustained fire. They simply couldn't lift their heads without being met by a fusillade. Entire machine gun crews were taken out by dozens of rifles firing simultaneously. And as the fighting moved into the Normandy countryside, into the tight, close-range kill zones of hedgerows, the Garand's advantage became even more brutal. With enemies often less than 100 yards away, the rifle's rapid fire meant German soldiers had no time to react. Traditional Wehrmacht tactics, which relied on a few riflemen suppressing while others maneuvered, disintegrated. American covering fire was too intense, too continuous. After the war, the U.S. Army's Historical Division analyzed countless reports. The results were striking. American infantry squads inflicted more casualties than expected, especially when compared to their size. Artillery, air support, and logistics all played vital roles. But when it came to infantry firefights, the data pointed squarely at the M1 Garand as a key factor. American troops could win engagements even when outnumbered, as long as they had cover and enough ammunition. Their edge in small arms changed the very nature of ground combat. The German counter, Sturmgewehr 44. In response, the Germans fielded their final answer, the Sturmgewehr 44, STG 44, the first true assault rifle in history. It fired the 7. Nye Tahoe 33 Little Kurtz, an intermediate cartridge offering a balance between long-range punch and controllable recoil. Feeding from a 30-round magazine, it could operate in both semi-automatic and fully automatic modes. It was, by all accounts, revolutionary. But again, it came too late. About 425 as 977 units were produced, the vast majority in 1944 and 1945, as Germany's military and industrial base collapsed. Most infantry never saw the weapon. Those who did often lacked the ammunition to use it effectively. The STG-44 was a marvel born into chaos. The man behind the machine, John Garand. To understand the Garand's success, we must return to its architect, John Cantius Garand. Born January 1, 1888, in Saint-Remy, Quebec, he moved to the United States as a boy. His journey from humble beginnings to historical impact began when he joined Springfield Armory on November 4, 1919. For nearly 2 decades, he devoted himself to creating the world's most advanced rifle. Early versions explored various operating systems and calibers. At one point, the U.S. Army favored a 276 caliber cartridge, which offered superior ballistics. But in 1932, then Army Chief of Staff General Douglas MacArthur made a pivotal decision: retain the Par 30-06 Springfield round to preserve compatibility with existing stockpiles and machine guns. This moment of pragmatism delayed the rifle's adoption, but ultimately cemented its logistical and battlefield utility. Garand continued refining his design. Testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground and Springfield Armory exposed weaknesses, and he corrected them. the gas system. Initially, a complex gas trap was simplified to the direct gas port design the Germans had once rejected. The trigger group was improved, the stock reshaped for better handling. Through iteration, dedication, and clarity of vision, Garand delivered a rifle that would change history, not merely by its technical brilliance, but by transforming the very way an army fought. From prototype to legend, the M1 Garand's enduring legacy. On January 9, 1936, history quietly turned a page. The United States officially adopted the new rifle, caliber .30 M1, the weapon that would redefine infantry warfare. Its early days were modest. In 1937 and 1938, only a few thousand were produced. But as the clouds of war thickened on the horizon, production surged. By January 1941, the line at Springfield Armory was delivering 600 rifles per day. This was more than preparation. It was transformation. The M1 Garand would go on to serve through World War II, across Korea, and even into the early years of the Vietnam War. It remained the standard issue rifle until the arrival of the M14, officially adopted on March 26, 1958, with the first units deployed by July 1959. Yet, full transition across all U.S. forces wouldn't be complete until 1961. And even then, the M1 Garand refused to fade quietly. Reserve units and the National Guard continued to carry it into the 1970s, a testament to its enduring reliability and battlefield value. Psychological impact shattering the myth for the German soldier trained in discipline, precision, and belief in the superiority of German engineering. Encountering the M1 Garand on the battlefield was more than a tactical shock, it was a crisis of faith. Years of propaganda had conditioned the Wehrmacht to view their opponents as technologically backward, industrial, but tactically inept. The Karabiner 9.0K, the doctrine, the training, all were supposed to be superior. But in the mud, dust, and smoke of battle, when German infantry units found themselves consistently outshot, pinned down, and outmaneuvered by smaller American squads, the illusion cracked. The psychological effect ran deep. How could it be that well-trained, properly equipped German soldiers, veterans even, were losing firefights against Americans, often from inferior positions? The answer was in their hands, or rather, in what wasn't. The M1 Garand didn't just level the playing field, it tilted it. American infantry wielded a weapon that allowed each man to deliver twice or even 3 times the volume of fire as his German counterpart. After the war, the U.S. Army's Historical Division studied hundreds of small unit engagements. The findings were consistent. American squads inflicted disproportionate casualties. Yes, factors like artillery and air support played a role. But even in pure infantry firefights, the M1 made the difference. Superior training meets superior firepower, tactical superiority, clever positioning, veteran experience, terrain advantage could only mitigate so much. In the end, if a German rifleman needed to work his bolt between every shot while his American opponent simply pulled the trigger, the math was damning. For every 3 shots a German soldier placed with his Kar 98K, the American was delivering 8, and doing so without losing sight of his target. The recoil was manageable, the action stayed closed, and the rate of accurate fire remained astonishingly high. In squad-level combat, these numbers compounded. A 9-man American squad could put more firepower downrange than larger German formations. It wasn't theory, it was experienced repeatedly from North Africa to the hedgerows of Normandy, in cities, in forests, on beaches. a technological turning point in military history. The M1 Garand didn't just win battles, it changed minds. Post-war studies in both Allied and Axis circles recognized its revolutionary nature. German military theorists, poring over battlefield defeats, began to see a pattern. Firepower disparity came up again and again. One such voice was Hasso von Manteuffel, a former General der Panzertruppe who commanded the 5th Panzer Army during the Battle of the Bulge, beginning December 16, 1944. In his post-war memoirs, he admitted a sobering truth. American infantry firepower exceeded that of German forces even when Germans occupied strong defensive terrain, and the cost was clear. In casualty statistics, the imbalance revealed itself. Time and again, American losses from German rifle fire were proportionally lower, while German units suffered heavier casualties in engagements dominated by M1-equipped troops. From hilltop foxholes to ruined villages, the pattern was the same. The Garand gave American infantry a decisive edge in one of the most fundamental aspects of war, killing the enemy before they kill you. The blueprint for the future, the lessons of the M1 Garand, echoed far beyond 1945. Its success wasn't just about one war. It became a template for the future. It demonstrated that semi-automatic operation was not only viable, but essential for the modern soldier. Every infantry rifle since, from the Soviet AK-47 to the American M14 to the M16 and onward to today's assault rifles, owes a conceptual debt to the Garand. It proved that with the right weapon, an ordinary soldier could become extraordinarily effective. No longer would rate of fire be tied to muscle memory and bolt manipulation. Accuracy and volume could coexist. The age of bolt-action mass infantry was over. The M1 Garand made sure of it. A symbol of a new era, from Patton to Tunisia, from Sicily to the Normandy beaches, through the frozen woods of the Ardennes, and across the shattered bridges of the Rhine, the M1 Garand was carried into every major theater of the war. It was not just a rifle, it was a symbol of industrial strength, of innovation, and of a nation determined to give its soldiers the best tools to survive and win. General George S. Patton wasn't exaggerating when he called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. German soldiers learned that lesson the hard way, and the world, from military planners to rifle designers, took note. With each metallic ping of an ejected clip, the M1 Garand sounded the end of one era and the birth of another. In war, there are moments where the tide turns not with a bomb or a tank, but with a man and a rifle in his hands. The M1 Garand was that rifle, and it changed everything. The final word, a weapon that changed the war. In the crucible of war, where outcomes hinge on seconds and inches, the weapon in a soldier's hands can make all the difference. The M1 Garand was that difference, not just in theory, not just on paper, but in the hard, brutal reality of combat. Throughout World War II, German casualties from rifle fire were consistently high. A significant share of those losses can be traced back to the M1 Garand and the soldiers who wielded it with devastating efficiency. Its impact was far greater than the sum of its parts. More than a precision-engineered rifle, more than a semi-automatic marvel, the M1 Garand stood as a symbol of American industrial vision, engineering brilliance, and a fundamental belief that the frontline soldier deserved the very best. While Germany struggled, hamstrung by overcomplicated semi-automatic rifle projects that delivered in drips and failed to scale, the United States had done something extraordinary. It had equipped an entire army, millions strong, with a battle-tested, reliable, and superior semi-automatic rifle before the war even began in earnest. That decision, born of foresight and unshakable commitment to troop readiness, would echo through every firefight from 1941 to 1945. Echoes of victory. Close your eyes and imagine that battlefield soundscape, the staccato rhythm of rifle fire, punctuated by the sharp metallic ping of the Garand's clip ejecting. That sound, unmistakable, soon became a kind of battlefield signature. German troops heard it and understood its meaning. They were facing an enemy who could deliver accurate, sustained fire faster than they could return it. That sound became synonymous with the advancing Allied line, from the shattered jungles of the Pacific Islands to the smoke-covered hedgerows of France. It was the voice of industrial dominance and tactical adaptability. It was the sound of a squad that didn't have to wait for machine gun support, because every man was a machine gun. A superiority proven in fire and blood. The carabiner WWII, for all its heritage and craftsmanship, simply couldn't match the tempo or efficiency of the M1 Garand. The disparity was laid bare, battle after battle, from North Africa to the Ardennes, from Monte Cassino to the Hurtgen Forest. The Garand provided its users with a tangible, repeatable advantage, one that the German infantry could neither ignore nor overcome. But let's be clear, the M1 didn't win the war by itself. Victory required combined arms, strategic bombing, armored thrusts, logistics on a continental scale, and the courage of millions. Yet, at the squad level, where combat becomes personal, where lives are risked and taken at distances of mere feet, the Garand was often the deciding factor. It gave American infantrymen the edge needed to survive, to advance, and to dominate. A legacy that still shapes battlefields. The M1 Garand story doesn't end in 1945. It continued to serve across 3 major wars, from the Philippines to Korea and into Vietnam's early years. And its legacy lives on in every modern military rifle. The idea that an infantryman should be armed with a weapon capable of high-volume, accurate fire, that began with the Garand. Its success sent a message to the world. When you equip your soldiers with the best, you transform what they are capable of. The United States didn't just give its troops a rifle, it gave them a force multiplier, one that fundamentally changed how battles were fought and how wars would be waged. A harsh lesson for the Wehrmacht, for the German soldier, often courageous, well-trained, and disciplined. The M1 Garand was an unforgiving teacher. It showed brutally and repeatedly that technological advantage matters, that bravery and experience could be undone by superior firepower in the hands of equally determined opponents. It drove home a truth that post-war German commanders would later concede in memoirs and analysis. Superior equipment in the hands of skilled, motivated troops changes the outcome of battles. The Garand didn't just help win the war, it helped redefine how wars would be fought forever after. A testament to the power of preparation. The M1 Garand stands today not just as a relic of the past, but as a testament to the value of visionary military planning. It proved that thoughtful design, robust engineering, and a commitment to soldier effectiveness paid dividends, not just in theory, but in lives saved and missions accomplished. It was, as General Patton said, the greatest battle implement ever devised. And in every clash where the M1 Garand barked and its clips sang that metallic farewell, it delivered not just bullets, but a message. We came prepared, and we came to win.